The woman's voice sliced through the cabin like a knife. "That's my seat," she said, loud enough for everyone in row 12 to hear. She wasn't pointing at me. She was pointing at my service dog. For a second, I thought she was joking. Buck was sitting calmly at my feet, vest on, eyes steady, the very picture of discipline. But then she folded her arms, glared, and added, "I'm not sitting next to a dog. Move it." The passengers turned, some curious, some embarrassed for her. I could feel heat rising in my chest, the same kind that used to hit me back when I was deployed. Buck shifted closer, grounding me, his weight steady against my leg. "I need him," I said quietly. "He's a service dog," she scoffed. "Oh, please, that's just a pet in a vest." The flight attendant hesitated, unsure what to do. People whispered. The tension spread like static through the cabin. And then, something happened that made the entire plane go silent. Let me start from very beginning. The flight started like any other, quiet, predictable, routine. For once, that was exactly what Cole needed. He wasn't flying for business or family. This trip was about proving to himself that he could live normally again. Just a man, his service dog, and a few hours in the sky. Buck, his service dog, sat beside him in the window seat, a sturdy German shepherd with intelligent eyes and a calm that could quiet storms. Cole had bought 2 tickets, one for himself, one for Buck. Not because he had to, but because Buck wasn't just a dog. He was therapy, protection, and anchor, all wrapped in fur. The dog's presence helped him manage the tremors of PTSD, the sudden rushes of adrenaline that came without warning. As the plane taxied down the runway, Cole exhaled slowly. He rubbed Buck's neck and whispered, "Easy flight, buddy. Just like training." For the first 20 minutes, everything was smooth. Buck's chin rested on Cole's boot. The hum of the engines became white noise. The man across the aisle, wearing a faded Cubs cap, smiled and gave a thumbs up. "Good boy," he mouthed. Cole nodded, appreciating the quiet kindness. Then, calm met chaos. Karen Stewart boarded late, a woman in her mid-40s, designer sunglasses perched on her head like a crown, and a presence that demanded the room revolve around her. Her teenage daughter trailed behind, phone in hand, chewing gum with the kind of boredom that only comes from learned entitlement. Karen stopped in the aisle, looking at her boarding pass, then at Cole, or rather at Buck, her lips curled. "Excuse me," she said, her voice rising above the engine noise. "That dog is in my child's seat." The surrounding rows turned. Cole blinked, confused. "Ma'am, I purchased both seats." "He's my service dog." Karen laughed, the kind of sharp, performative laugh that made people stare. "A service dog? He's taken up a seat I paid for. This is ridiculous." The flight attendant, a young woman named Chloe with a practiced calm, stepped in. "Ma'am, the dog is registered and approved to fly." "He's not in your seat." Karen's eyes narrowed. "I want to see proof." Cole opened his travel folder, pulled out the paperwork and offered it. "Here, certified service animal. PTSD support." But Karen didn't look at the papers. She looked at Cole, at the small scars peeking from under his sleeve, at the military-style posture he couldn't quite hide. Her tone shifted from fake concern to barely veiled disdain. "PTSD, huh? So what? You get a free seat now." The man in the Cubs cap frowned. "Lady, come on. He's got a ticket." "Let it go," Karen turned on him. "Mind your own business." Chloe tried to keep the peace. "Why don't we all take our seats? We'll be in the air soon." But Karen wasn't done. She dropped her purse dramatically into the aisle, pressing a hand to her chest. I can't breathe around animals. I'm allergic." Her daughter rolled her eyes but stayed silent. Cole felt Buck tense beside him. The cabin buzzed with awkward murmurs, some passengers annoyed, others sympathetic. Chloe asked gently, "Ma'am, are you experiencing a medical emergency?" Karen nodded theatrically. "Yes, I need the dog removed before I pass out." Cole's jaw tightened. "That's not how allergies work," he said evenly. Karen gasped, clutching her armrest. "He's threatening me now," Cubs cap guy muttered. "Oh, give me a break." The captain's voice came over the intercom. Calm but firm. "Flight attendants, please remain seated as we assess a passenger concern." Chloe gave Cole a look, the kind that said, "Stay calm, I've got this." She crouched beside Karen, lowering her voice. "Ma'am, if this were a medical emergency, I'd call paramedics immediately. But you seem stable. Would you like to deplane?" Karen froze. The idea of leaving clearly wasn't part of her plan. Cole leaned back, stroking Buck's ear. The dog hadn't moved a muscle, perfectly trained to withstand tension. Across the aisle, Cub's Cap Guy whispered, "You handled that better than I would have." Cole gave a small smile. Buck's got better manners than both of us. But as the flight resumed boarding and Karen fumed quietly in her seat 2 rows ahead, Cole couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. People like her didn't lose gracefully. She'd played the allergy card. Next, she'd find something worse. The hum of the engines grew louder as the plane lifted off, sunlight spilling through the windows. For a brief moment, peace returned, but it felt fragile. Temporary. Cole looked down at Buck, who tilted his head as if sensing the unease. "Stay sharp, buddy," Cole murmured, because deep down, he knew Karen's little performance at 30,000 feet was just getting started. The argument had already stretched on for nearly 20 minutes, long enough for every passenger on board to realize this wasn't a normal seating dispute. Karen wasn't moving. She sat stiffly, arms crossed, chin lifted like a queen refusing exile. Chloe, the young flight attendant from earlier, kept her voice level, but her patience was thinning. The captain had radioed up, the delay clock ticking. That's when Maria stepped in. Maria was one of those people whose presence instantly quieted a room. Senior attendant. Calm, sharp, motherly, but with that unmistakable steel behind her smile. She crouched beside Karen's seat, voice soft but commanding. "Ma'am, I understand you're uncomfortable, but we verified his papers and the dog is authorized. If you're having an allergic reaction, I can call medics, but you can't hold up the flight." Karen didn't flinch. "I paid for this seat. I'm not moving because some man thinks his dog is more important than paying customers." Maria took a long breath, patient, rehearsed. "Ma'am, I need you to lower your voice." Karen's lips trembled, not from fear but from anger she couldn't quite justify anymore. "You people are unbelievable. I've flown this route for years, and never once did I have to share a cabin with a mutt." Cole stayed quiet. He'd learned that silence often spoke louder than any comeback. He just kept his hand on Buck's back, slow breaths, steady grounding. Maria glanced at him, a brief, apologetic look, before addressing the rest of the cabin. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience. We'll be taking off shortly." That should have been the end, but of course it wasn't. 5 minutes after takeoff, the plane hit a pocket of turbulence, one of those sudden jolts that drops your stomach and makes the overhead bins rattle. Drinks sloshed. A child cried out, and for Cole something deep inside him flashed. It wasn't the plane that scared him. It was what the turbulence triggered, that helpless, suspended feeling. The hum of pressure in his ears, the tightening chest. For a second he wasn't in a plane anymore. He was back in Afghanistan in the Humvee, hearing the sudden crack of something overhead, the ringing silence that followed. He froze. Muscles locked. Breath shallow. But Buck didn't move. The dog's training kicked in like clockwork. He pressed his body against Cole's leg. Firm, steady, grounding. Buck's head rose until his muzzle touched Cole's hand. That tactile pressure snapped reality back into place. Cole's eyes refocused. On the narrow aisle, the whisper of the air vents, the low hum of people murmuring. He exhaled slowly. Maria had noticed. She approached quietly, crouched near him. "Are you okay, sir?" Cole nodded. "Yeah, my dog's got me." Karen, of course, wasn't done inserting herself. She turned in her seat, scoffing loud enough for the nearby rows to hear. "Oh, please. He's having an episode because of his dog. Maybe he's the problem." That did it. Cub's Cap Guy leaned across the aisle. "Lady, are you serious right now?" He's a veteran, and that dog just calmed him down better than any pill could. Another passenger, a middle-aged woman clutching her rosary, added, "You should be ashamed. That animal just saved him." For the first time since boarding, Karen looked unsure. She blinked, eyes darting between faces, the realization settling that no one was on her side anymore. Maria stood up, voice clear. "Ma'am, please remain seated. You've disrupted enough of this flight." Karen's nostrils flared. Her daughter, red-faced, muttered something like, "Mom, stop." But Karen wasn't wired to stop. People like her only knew how to escalate, and escalate she did. Midway through the next hour, when things finally seemed peaceful, Karen pressed the call button again. Maria approached, cautious. "Yes, ma'am." Karen gestured to the aisle. I need to change my baby, Maria frowned. Your daughter is a teenager, ma'am. Karen ignored that. You expect me to do it in that tiny bathroom? Absolutely not. She unbuckled her belt and stood, dragging a large tote bag into the narrow aisle, right between rows, blocking everyone. Passengers groaned. You've got to be kidding. The captain's voice broke through the speakers. Calm, firm, unmistakably irritated. Flight attendants, secure the aisle immediately. Maria looked at Karen one last time. Ma'am, you need to sit down now. Karen folded her arms. Not until that dog is off this plane. Cole just sat there, hand still resting on Buck's head, voice low enough only Maria could hear. Told you she wasn't done. Maria exhaled, nodded, and tapped her intercom. Captain, we're going to need you up here. And that, right there in the cramped aisle of an airplane 30,000 feet in the air, was the moment everything changed, because when the captain got involved, Karen's little show stopped being theater. It became a reckoning. When the cockpit door opened, the cabin went silent like someone had pressed mute on the world. Captain Jack Rios stepped out, tall, composed, the kind of presence that didn't need to raise its voice to command a room. His navy uniform was crisp, his posture unwavering. But it wasn't the gold stripes on his shoulders that quieted everyone. It was the authority in his eyes, the calm kind, the kind that said he'd seen chaos before and knew exactly how to cut through it. He didn't look angry. He didn't even look surprised, just disappointed, the same look a parent gives when a child's pushed too far. Ma'am, he said evenly, turning to Karen, I'm Captain Rios. I understand there's been an issue regarding a service animal. Karen immediately shifted gears. Her tone softened, the hostility replaced by fragile theatrics. Oh, thank goodness you're here, Captain. I've been trying to tell them. I'm severely allergic. That dog could put me in danger. I just wanted a safe seat for my daughter. Her voice trembled on cue. If you didn't know better, you might have believed her. The captain didn't. He crouched slightly, his tone gentle but precise. Understood. Do you have medical documentation verifying a severe airborne allergy? Karen blinked. Well, no, not on me, but... Okay, he interrupted smoothly. Because by law we're required to honor service animals recognized under the ADA. That means Mr. Cole and his dog are fully protected passengers. He's not required to move, and neither is his service animal. But if you can't travel safely, I can arrange to have you deboarded before we reach cruising altitude. The words landed like a verdict. Calm, unshakable, factual. Karen's face drained of color. You're saying I have to leave? The captain's voice didn't waver. If you're claiming a medical emergency due to allergy, yes. Safety first. But, she stammered, her performance faltering, you're seriously going to keep that animal here instead of protecting a mother and child? Jack's eyes narrowed slightly, not unkind but firm. That animal is a trained service dog. He's part of this passenger's medical accommodation. What you're calling just a dog is the reason this flight can take off safely at all. The cabin was dead silent. Karen's daughter shrank in her seat, face flushed red. The passengers, who'd been watching like an audience at a slow-motion courtroom drama, finally exhaled. Cubs cap guy muttered under his breath. "'Bout time." Karen tried one last tactic and the tears. I feel like no one cares about me or my daughter's safety." She pressed her palm dramatically against her chest. "I'm being bullied." The captain tilted his head slightly, then said in the calmest, most devastating voice imaginable, "Ma'am, I need you to stop now." "You're not being bullied. You're being informed." It was surgical, no yelling, no cruelty. Just truth, clean and direct. He turned to Maria. "Ma'am, please reassign her if possible, or if she prefers, we can return to gate and have her removed for non-compliance." That was the moment Karen's act cracked completely. She huffed, muttering something about terrible airlines and social media reviews, but she sat down, hard. The captain nodded once, case closed, and addressed the rest of the cabin. "Thank you all for your patience." Well cleared for smooth skies ahead. And then, just like that, he turned and walked back to the cockpit, leaving behind a silence that slowly bloomed into relief. Someone in row 7 started clapping. Then another. Within seconds, the entire plane joined in. Not loud, not mocking, just this soft ripple of gratitude. A collective exhale after turbulence of a different kind. Cole didn't clap. He just smiled faintly and rubbed Buck's ear. The dog had stayed steady through it all. The shouting, the shaking, the tension. His eyes calm, grounded, loyal. Maria leaned over and whispered, "He really is amazing." Cole nodded. "He's my anchor. When my brain starts slipping somewhere dark, he brings me back." For a moment, Maria's composure softened. "You'd be surprised how many people don't understand that." "Yeah," Cole said quietly, eyes on Buck. "They see fur and 4 legs. I see the reason I made it home." Outside the window, clouds drifted past like slow-moving ghosts, sunlight pouring through them. The tension that had gripped the cabin was gone, replaced by the hum of normalcy, seatbelts clicking, pages turning, the soft chatter of passengers now united by a shared story they'd tell later. Karen stayed silent the rest of the flight. Occasionally, she'd glance toward Cole, not with defiance anymore, but with something closer to shame, maybe even understanding. As the plane began its descent, Cole looked down at Buck curled beneath his feet, resting peacefully after doing his job without ever asking for recognition. He thought about all the chaos, the yelling, the judgment, the storm of assumptions, and how through all of it, Buck had never once flinched, never once wavered. When the wheels touched down and the passengers started to stand, Cub's cap guy patted Cole's shoulder. "Hey, man," he said. "Glad you and your buddy are on our side." Cole smiled. "Me too." As he stepped off the plane, sunlight spilling through the jet bridge, he felt that old familiar peace, the kind that only comes after a storm you didn't start but had to weather anyway. He glanced down at Buck, whose tail gave a slow, steady wag and said quietly, "Good job, partner." And as they walked away, Cole realized something simple but profound, something that would stick with him long after that flight was forgotten by everyone else. Sometimes the most human soul on a plane isn't a human at all.